Europe. And Europe is in the news right now because they are against Bitcoin and for Ethereum. So you have a headline there that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I do. I got
this
in Zero Hedge.
Going to relate to the story out of the Central African Republic.
Yeah, so the EU is saying, if Ethereum can change the code and make themselves less carbon intensive, then so should Bitcoin. And we're going to need to attack the price of Bitcoin. The only thing that these Bitcoiners understand is price. We're going to attack the price, and we're going to support Ethereum. So this is this is what's going on here over there at the EU. The Swedish financial regulator and the EU Commission discussed the possibility of banning Bitcoin and proof of work due to its environmental impact. Now, this, of course, is insanity, because what the EU is doing is they're removing themselves from the race to become Bitcoinized and hyper-Bitcoinization. Whereas, as you point out, they're all over Africa, the colonies of the EU. These countries are like, hey, man, we're going to break free and we're going to emancipate ourselves from fiat money. And that's what's happening.
Of course, that's market manipulation, right? And it does lend credence to the long-held theory that there's all this manipulation of the gold price. And it's easier for them because the central banks own a lot of gold. Now, they don't own a lot of Bitcoin, and they can't control your private keys. But the thing is, like, there are all sorts of Bitcoin ETFs, even in Europe and other parts of the world. Certainly not in the US yet, but there is of course, a futures Bitcoin ETF. So, I mean, what they're suggesting is that they would target the Bitcoin price and in order to obviously gaslight people. But that's market fraud, right? Because there are actual market products. Fidelity just announced that their 401k plans, and there's close to $3 trillion or $4 trillion in 401k plans with them, that they up to 20% could be put into Bitcoin. So, this is harming investors all over the world, what the EU plan suggests.
Right. So this idea of attacking the price of Bitcoin, as you say there, it reveals the EU as being anti-free markets and to a great extent anti-free speech, because they've also voiced objection to Elon Musk and his takeover of Twitter because they don't believe in unfettered free speech. They don't believe in free markets and free enterprise. So they're really, really getting back to their roots as socialists and communists in the European Union, heavily bureaucratic, royalists, top-down monarchies and bureaucrats. Hello?
Quintillionaires and elitists and aristocrats and imperialists, right? So, I mean, it ties in with the next story of Bitcoin. The Central African Republic adopts Bitcoin as legal tender. So it's officially the second country in the world. We kind of waited on this because it was hard to discern whether or not this was actually true. But it turns out that the Central African Republic, has adopted Bitcoin as legal tender. That's the second nation after El Salvador. As Saif Dean says, another country with no currency of their own, because they have the French currency, or France ran their currency, adopts Bitcoin rather than solely rely on a foreign central bank expropriating its wealth through inflation. So, there's this sort of sense of entitlement from the money printers. Are like remember up until the French Revolution, the divine right of kings and the sun gods, and they feel like there's a sense of entitlement to these people, that they get to decide whether or not they could deplatform entire people, and that's the story of Twitter and Elon Musk buying that. But
yeah, it's like the global South, right? Because the U.S. If you go south, you find Central America and Latin America.
Yeah.
In Europe, you go south and you find Africa.
Yeah.
You know, so and it's colonies in the south. And so this
Ex-colonies.
Ex-colonies. So these ex-colonies in Africa are busting free of the French and their influence on their currency. And over here in Central and South America, they're busting free of the Federal Reserve in Washington, D.C. And their influence on their economy and their currency. So it's the BRICS and the global south. I mean, they're making this huge Bitcoin-enabled move. They've been waiting hundreds and hundreds of years for an opportunity to establish their own sovereignty.
Yeah. So I think this is a good point that, you know, I had posted a link to your February 2014 segment on Keiser Report with Tur de Meester, where you two had been discussing like which nation would be the first. Now we have two nations. So back then you were talking about it would be a small nation, it would be a nimble nation, and it would have economic liberty, a lot of economic liberty. So of course that is President Bukele's whole platform. He discusses all the time. People in politics on Twitter in El Salvador talk all the time about economic liberty. That is their motto, essentially. So Tur was right about that. Of course, back in 2014, when you said that, there was a different party in power and a different president in power in El Salvador. So you had said possibly Panama. But the thing that you two missed was that obviously not even having your own currency anyway already made the perfect sense to be the first one, because it's hard for your cantillionaire class to give up that money printing power, right? They get to lord it over everybody else. And if you don't have that power anyway, if there's no cantillionaire elite class to persuade to adopt Bitcoin, then you're already like ahead of the game, right? That's
on the call just a couple of days ago, we're talking about El Salvador and Bitcoin adoption in El Salvador. People were saying, well, you know, the adoption rate is not happening as fast as people want it to happen. And I said, look, I mean, it's global FOMO. I said, look, probably a country in Africa will be the next to announce Bitcoin as legal tender. And I said that 3 or 4 days ago. And then this will create FOMO internationally. So now, going back to Central America, now those countries that were sitting on the fence will be like, oh my God, you know, we've got to now move because this is going global. So global FOMO kicking in. So Africa saw what's happening there. So they made Bitcoin legal tender. Now that's going to be reciprocated over back in Central America and Latin America. And then it goes to global FOMO. And pretty soon you're going to have 20, 30, 40 countries on Bitcoin as legal tender.
Yeah, so that's two nations with legal tender. And according to UN charters, that should then be tax-free in all countries around the world because it's a currency of a nation. So this is two. They point out that compared to this Bitcoin Magazine article about the Central African Republic, says that while the majority, comparing it to El Salvador, while the majority of El Salvador's population did not have access to the banking system when the country's Bitcoin adoption began, internet access in El Salvador was widespread.